There's a strange paradox you've likely lived through, or are going through right now. You cared. You gave her time, attention, thought, maybe even devotion. And when you did, she drifted. Cold, confused, distant. But the moment you stop chasing, the moment you redirect that energy, she reappears, reignited, interested, curious. This isn't some game or pop psychology cliché. It's something deeper, psychological, human, stoic. And it teaches us not just about her, but about ourselves. In today's video, we're going to break down this phenomenon piece by piece. This isn't a rant, it's a roadmap. If you've ever asked yourself, why does she only seem to want me when I'm over her? You're about to get your answer. With proof, with structure, with clarity. We'll explore this from the lens of Stoicism, emotional mastery, and masculine resilience. And most importantly, how to use this knowledge to become a stronger, more centered version of yourself. Not for her, but for you. Before we dive in, make sure you subscribe to the Everlasting Stoic. We're building a community here, one forged in reason, wisdom, and real growth. Hit the like button if you've ever felt this strange shift in a relationship, and stay until the very end, because the conclusion will tie all of this together in a way that may just change your entire perspective. Now, let's begin. 1. Shift your focus away from her. It starts here, always. When she becomes the center of your attention, the orbit around which your every thought spins, the foundation of your emotional climate, you've already lost. Not because caring is wrong, not because connection is weak, but because fixation signals lack, scarcity, emotional dependence. Even if you're silent, even if you're playing it cool, your energy betrays you. And whether we like it or not, energy is perceptible, especially to someone you've had romantic tension or history with. She feels it. She knows she holds weight in your mental world. And in the paradox of human nature, when something is guaranteed, it's devalued. So the first, and perhaps most painful step, is this. You must truly, sincerely, deeply shift your focus away from her. Not as a tactic, not as a trick, but as a genuine decision to reclaim your attention. Because your attention is your most valuable currency. What you give it to grows. And if your emotional and mental bandwidth is consumed by her absence, you are ironically feeding that absence. You're nurturing the very thing that wounded you. When a Stoic speaks of detachment, they don't mean emotional coldness. They mean equanimity. The ability to hold desire and dignity in the same hand. They mean recognizing the flame of want without letting it burn down the house of your composure. You have to shift from how can I get her back to how can I get myself back. That's the energy that changes everything. When you withdraw your attention, not in a vindictive or bitter way, but in a grounded, self-possessed way, you send out a new signal, one that says, I no longer need this to feel whole. And that's when she notices. That's when the shift occurs. That's when your absence starts to feel louder than your presence ever did. But here's the catch. It only works when it's real. If you pretend to move on while secretly obsessing in the background, the energy doesn't lie. The energy doesn't lie. You might post the right pictures, say the right words, even sleep with someone else. But if she still lives rent-free in your every idle moment, she'll feel it. She'll know. And the universe, if you'll permit the metaphor, does not reward pretenders. Only those who truly let go. Now let's get brutally honest. Why is it so hard to shift focus? It's not just about her. It's not even about the relationship. Often the fixation comes from a deeper place, a place inside of us that desperately wants certainty, control, closure. We want to feel chosen. But Stoicism reminds us, you were never in control of her choices. You were only ever in control of how you respond, of what you choose to do with your time, your thoughts, your breath, your habits. So stop trying to be chosen and start choosing yourself. If you wake up every morning and the first thing on your mind is her, shift it, not by force, but by filling that space with something worthy, with action, with motion. Go train, go build, go create, go read the letters of Marcus Aurelius, go get sunlight, go reconnect with your inner gravity. If you don't fill the space she left with something better, her absence becomes a vacuum. And vacuums suck. She must no longer be your morning thought or your nighttime ache. She must become background noise, and not in bitterness, but in peace. Now here's the twist. When that shift happens, authentically, you become scarce, but not in a fake way. In a high-value, focused, upward-moving kind of way. And human beings, especially in romance, are magnetized by that which they feel slipping out of their grasp. Suddenly, you're no longer chasing, you're building. Suddenly, you're no longer posting to prove something. You're silent and still progressing. Suddenly, she feels something she hasn't felt in a long time. Uncertainty. She wonders what's changed, what took her place, who took her place, why her influence seems to have vanished from your eyes, your words, your world. That's the power of shifting your focus, not as a tool to win her back, but as a way to win yourself back. And when you win yourself back, everything changes. Whether she returns or not becomes irrelevant, because you're no longer orbiting someone else's gravity. You've become your own sun. And from that place, all things are possible. Tell me this, what's the habit or thought pattern you're cutting off today in order to reclaim your focus? Write it in the comments like a contract with yourself. Say, I choose to stop feeding this thing and start investing in this other thing. Say it proudly. Say it for you and say it publicly, because declarations carry weight. 2. Keep an air of mystery. Once you've shifted your focus from her to yourself, you begin to reclaim your time, your silence, your solitude. And it's in that silence that something powerful happens. You become mysterious again. Now pause and consider this. Why is mystery so attractive? Because what is mysterious cannot be controlled. It cannot be predicted. And in an age of constant access, where people can check your status, see your stories, watch your patterns, true mystery is rare. It unsettles, it invites speculation, and it creates emotional gravity. Mystery isn't about manipulation. It's about presence without full access. It's about existing in a space where people can feel your energy, but can't quite place your intentions. When she knows what you're thinking, what you're doing, how you're feeling, all without needing to ask, you've made yourself emotionally transparent, and that's comfortable. But comfort is not compelling. Predictability is not magnetic. When you step back and become less available, not as a tactic, but as a byproduct of real self-focus, you become enigmatic again. A question mark instead of a period. And people don't chase clarity nearly as hard as they chase curiosity. Think about the men in history and literature who were truly compelling. They weren't loud. They weren't always broadcasting their emotions. They moved with depth, often in silence. There was always something unread about them. A chapter you could never quite finish. That's what happens when you stop over-explaining yourself. When you stop posting for her eyes. When you stop protesting your pain in hopes that she'll understand it and come running back. The moment you become okay with not being understood is the moment you begin to be seen again. Not as someone who needs, but as someone who possesses something internally anchored. This is where Stoicism becomes your guide. A Stoic does not seek validation through expression. A Stoic understands that words are wind when not backed by soul. And sometimes the most powerful move you can make is to say nothing at all. Mystery doesn't mean withdrawal from life. It means moving so deeply within it that people feel your shift but can't follow your footsteps. It's the art of giving less information while becoming more intriguing. It's the tension between accessibility and autonomy. She doesn't need to know if you're dating someone new. She doesn't need to know where you've been, what you've been doing, or why you stopped liking her posts. Let her wonder. Let her feel the void. Not because you're playing games, but because you finally stopped filling every silence with explanation. Let her sit with her own questions. Because it's in those unanswered questions that attraction is often reborn. You do not need to orchestrate this. Just remove the unnecessary noise. Step fully into your own momentum. Allow your presence to be felt indirectly, not forcefully. And if she reaches out, don't overshare. Don't spill the pages of your healing into her hands. She is not the confessional booth for your transformation. You owe no status report. You owe authenticity, dignity, movement, nothing else. When your actions become opaque but intentional, when your progress becomes silent but visible, when your attention becomes focused but flexible, that's when you become magnetic again. Because you are no longer a page to be read, you are a book that cannot be skimmed. And that is compelling. 3. Let time become your filter. Here's what no one wants to hear when they're hurting. Healing isn't fast. We live in a world that moves at the speed of dopamine. Swipe, scroll, distract. But the ancient Stoics knew something modern life wants us to forget. Time reveals what emotion hides. When you're in pain, especially the pain of rejection or disconnection, your perception becomes fogged. You can't tell clarity from desperation. You mistake longing for love. You conflate absence with value. And in that storm of inner chaos, you feel the urge to act, to reach out, to resolve, to fix. But the Stoic way is different. It invites you to wait, not passively, but intentionally, because time doesn't just pass, it purifies. Every day that you don't text her, every night you go to bed without sending that just checking in message, every weekend you spend without orbiting her digital shadow, something happens. Your emotions begin to settle, and like sediment in water, once stillness sets in, the bottom becomes visible. You begin to see what was real and what was illusion. You realize that many of the moments you romanticized were tinted by your need for connection, not by actual compatibility. You begin to discern which of your memories were hers, and which were the version of her you hoped she would be. You begin to separate who you miss from why you miss her. Time is the most powerful filter you will ever have, and it costs nothing except patience. But most men waste it. They break no contact after 5 days because she liked a photo. They cave and check in after a week because the silence feels too loud. They re-follow her because they want her to notice they've unfollowed. None of these are the actions of someone who trusts time. They are the actions of someone still ruled by emotion. The Stoic chooses the opposite. He embraces time like a sculptor embraces marble. He understands that the process will be slow, unglamorous, and invisible, until one day It is until one day you wake up and realize you haven't thought about her all morning. You didn't notice her name in your notifications. You don't care what she's posting, who she's with, or if she's thinking about you. You've passed through the phase of noise into peace. And then that's usually when she returns. Why? Because women, like all humans, are attuned to energetic shifts. When your attention was tethered to her, even invisibly, it had weight. It echoed in the subtle ways. It lingered. And when it's gone, not feigned but truly gone, it creates absence. And absence creates value. But again, this is not about making her miss you. That's still attachment. This is about finally allowing the natural consequence of your inner work to unfold without you needing to watch the clock. There's a moment in every healing journey where you realize, I am no longer waiting. I am no longer hoping. I am simply living. That is the power of time. Not rushed, not skipped, not dramatized, but trusted. And if you've made it through heartbreak, you've felt this truth. There are things that time heals, that no advice, no book, no video, and no rebound relationship ever could. So if you're in the middle of it right now, if you're staring down another day of not hearing from her, another week of wondering if she even thinks of you, trust the filter. Because what remains after time is real, and what dissolves was never meant to stay. If you felt this shift before, if you've lived through that silent process where time revealed what you couldn't see before, share your experience in the comments. What clarity did time bring you that you never could have imagined in the moment? Your story may help someone else wait just one more day. And that one day might be the difference between relapse and rebirth. 4. Display certainty without arrogance. When she begins to notice your distance, your quiet growth, your silence that doesn't seek validation, that's when she starts watching again. Closely, quietly. You may not hear from her, but she's checking. Energy like yours doesn't disappear unnoticed. And when she watches, she's looking for one thing: certainty. Not words, not status updates, not performative confidence, but a deep, unshakable knowing in how you carry yourself. Now here's where many men make a fatal mistake. They confuse certainty with arrogance. They swing from neediness to ego, from overgiving to overcompensating. Suddenly, every post becomes a highlight reel. Every interaction becomes a flex. Every silence becomes a weapon. This is not the Stoic way. True Stoic certainty does not require attention. It radiates. It is inward, not projected. It is quiet, not boastful. It does not rush to prove its evolution. It simply is. You see, arrogance seeks acknowledgement. Certainty seeks nothing. And that difference is felt. When you're certain, truly certain, you don't flinch when she walks into the same space. You don't over-explain why you've been gone. You don't try to be noticed. You don't need her to see your progress to validate it. You've shifted your validation away from the external and into the internal. You've begun living by a compass, not a weather vane. You've stopped reacting to the wind and started moving toward your mountain. But let's be honest, it's hard. Because somewhere deep down, most of us want to be understood. We want her to get it. We want her to see how far we've come, what she missed out on, who we've become without her. But as long as that need exists, the need to be seen by her, you're still orbiting her judgment. True certainty doesn't need her permission to evolve. It doesn't even need her to witness it. It stands tall, even if no one is watching. That's what makes it powerful. So how do you cultivate that certainty? Not by posturing, not by practicing alpha energy in the mirror, You cultivate it by aligning your life with things that do not move when people leave. Your values, your disciplines, your sense of direction, your purpose, your code. Certainty is built in the quiet repetition of things that make you stronger. Mentally, emotionally, physically. When you get up at the same time, when you train without needing to post about it, when you learn because you value knowledge, not because you want to sound impressive, when you say no to temptations that drag you back into old patterns, each act becomes a brick, each choice a layer of concrete. And over time, you build something no one can take from you. And here's the beautiful paradox. The more certain you become, the more attractive you become. Not just to her, but to the world. Because humans are magnetically drawn to centeredness. In a sea of unstable people shifting with every emotion, the grounded man becomes a lighthouse. She may not admit it. She may not message you right away. But something changes. You are no longer a question. You are a presence, not demanding attention, commanding it by needing none. If you're on this path, if you've recently felt the difference between trying to be impressive and simply being solid, drop a line in the comments. Something simple, something powerful. Say, I don't chase approval. I carry certainty. Let those words echo. Let them be your internal standard, written in public for others to feel the vibration of your shift. 5. Create the space for her curiosity. Here's the truth no one talks about. Curiosity can't exist without space. If you're constantly showing up in her world, liking posts, viewing stories, texting just to check in, you're removing the one element that creates intrigue: distance. Curiosity doesn't survive in the presence of certainty. And when she knows exactly what you're feeling, what you're doing, how much you still want her, what's left to explore, she's not heartless. She's human. And humans do not chase what they already possess. This is why pulling away isn't just about dignity. It's about reintroducing the unknown. But again, we return to the Stoic discipline. You do not do this to get a reaction. You do this to return to your center. Because if you try to make her curious, you're still tethered to her perception. That's not distance. That's manipulation. And manipulation always reveals itself eventually. It leaves a bitter aftertaste, even when it works. No, the space you create must be real, which means you stop interacting not because you want her to notice, but because you need silence to heal. It means you stop explaining not to provoke her, but because you've said everything already, and the rest must now be lived, not spoken. And in that space, she feels the shift. She sees the void where your presence used to be. Not just in messages or interactions, but in energy. In moments where she expected you to reach out, and you didn't. In memories where she once felt comforted, now unanchored. And her mind starts working. She wonders where you are, what you're doing, who you're becoming. She replays conversations with new ears. She scrolls through your old messages not for nostalgia, but for decoding, trying to understand what changed. And that curiosity, if it's ever going to be sparked, must come from silence, not pressure. Don't speak into the silence. Let it echo. Don't post cryptic quotes designed to get her attention. That's noise, not mystery. Don't casually, accidentally like her story. That's fishing, not transformation. Real change makes noise without a sound. You see, space is uncomfortable. Not just for her, for you too. Because in the space you'll feel the itch to act, the urge to reinsert yourself. But don't let her reach her own conclusions. Let her follow her own thread of curiosity. Because when someone chooses to come back of their own accord, they come back with respect. And if she doesn't, you haven't lost anything. Because you weren't holding the space to manipulate. You were holding it to see what would naturally return when you stopped forcing it. That is the only kind of relationship worth reviving. The one that walks back to you without being called. And while you hold that space, you grow. You build. You become so focused on becoming who you're meant to be that her return is no longer required. It's optional. And in that shift, you reclaim your power. Space is not empty. Space is a container for something new. Use it wisely. 6. Strengthen your emotional self-reliance. There comes a point in every man's journey, usually after the silence, the space, the pain, where he realizes something humbling. He's not just hurting because she left. He's hurting because he entrusted her with the keys to his emotional stability. It's not the breakup, the distance, or even the ghosting that truly wounds. It's the recognition that your joy, your peace, your inner climate had become externalized. That you had placed your emotional life into someone else's hands and called it love. And when they pulled back, the house collapsed. Not because they were the structure, because you never reinforced the foundation beneath it. That's why this chapter matters more than any of the ones before. Because until you master emotional self-reliance, you are not free. Not from her, not from anyone. A Stoic does not numb his emotions. He refines them. He recognizes the full landscape of feeling, without allowing those feelings to dictate his actions. He does not demonize attachment, but he places ownership of the soul above all external forces. So what does emotional self-reliance actually look like? It looks like this. You no longer need her to validate your worth. You no longer need her reply to regulate your nervous system. You no longer need to be chosen to feel whole. You rise, eat, move, breathe, train, think, and reflect. Not because someone is watching, not because someone may come back, but because these acts are now rooted in your identity, not in your outcome. And if she reaches out, you don't crumble. You don't lose your footing. You don't spiral into what does it mean, or is this the moment I've been waiting for? You respond or don't with the same energy you've built in solitude. Measured, grounded, and inwardly rich. Because now, her message isn't a rescue boat. It's just a message. You've outgrown the need to be rescued. You've outgrown the fantasy that someone else will complete what only you were ever meant to construct. Let's be brutally honest. Most of us weren't taught this. We were taught that love means emotional exposure, full surrender, no boundaries. We were taught to be open without ever being taught how to protect our center. And so we gave too much. We overinvested. We overshared. We over-explained. Then, when it didn't work, we called it heartbreak. But heartbreak is often just a mirror, a reflection showing us the parts of ourselves we tried to outsource. The peace we gave away too cheaply. The sense of self we never fully cultivated. Emotional self-reliance means you begin to cultivate that inner fortress, brick by brick, morning by morning, in silence, in solitude, in simplicity. It's reading when no one's watching, training when no one applauds, reflecting when no one is there to respond. It's holding space for your own breakdowns. It's saying, I'm not okay right now, and letting that truth sit in your chest. Not as weakness, but as raw material for strength. You stop begging for understanding. You stop looking for someone to hold your pain. You learn to hold it yourself and alchemize it. And when you do that, you become unshakable. It doesn't mean you won't love again. In fact, you will love better, Because your love will no longer be a trade for security. It will be a gift from someone already secure within themselves. She may come back, or she may not, but either way, you'll be rooted. And this time, if someone walks away, you won't fall with them, because you are now your own sanctuary. And nothing is more attractive than that. If this chapter hits something deep within you, if you're in the trenches of rebuilding your inner foundation, drop a line below. Write, "I hold my own peace now, not for me, not even for others, but for you." Because there's something powerful about claiming your growth publicly, something that makes it real. 7. Stop seeking signs. Live your life. She liked your photo. Was that a sign? She looked at your story, even though she hasn't messaged you in weeks. Is she thinking about you? She posted a quote that suspiciously mirrors something you once said. Coincidence or message? These are the thoughts that fill the quiet hours, the desperate decoding of digital crumbs, the exhausting search for meaning where none may exist. And make no mistake, it's normal. It's human, but it's also the fast lane to madness. There's a seductive chaos in the search for signs. It gives you a false sense of control, a narrative to cling to, a way to feel that you're not completely powerless in a situation that has left you raw and uncertain. But a Stoic doesn't read tea leaves. He reads himself. He doesn't build castles out of half-formed gestures and broken algorithms. He builds his character, his habits, his purpose, because he knows that even if the signs are real, they change nothing about what he must become. You have no idea what her signs mean. Maybe she's curious. Maybe she's nostalgic. Maybe she's playing a game. Maybe she's just bored. But ask yourself this, does it matter? If she's not reaching out directly, if she's not making her interest explicit, clear, and unambiguous, if she's not taking action that matches the weight of your past, then her signs are just smoke. And a man who has spent months rebuilding himself does not chase smoke. He breathes clean air. You cannot anchor your life to signals that vanish the moment you need them most. You cannot delay your healing for a fantasy that refuses to materialize. You cannot keep one eye on your journey and the other on your notifications. That split attention is costing you your life. The Stoic doesn't wait for confirmation from the outside world. He doesn't hesitate in the face of ambiguity. He moves, he acts, he builds, not because the signs are favorable, but because his direction is correct. And that is the difference between a man who thrives and a man who treads water waiting for someone else to decide if he's worthy of a second chance. Let go of the decoding. Let go of the surveillance. Let go of the need for omens and clues. If she wants to speak, she will. If she doesn't, you will live anyway. You will rise anyway. You will continue anyway. This chapter is not about ignoring your feelings. It's about reclaiming your focus. It's about no longer placing your emotional rhythm in the hands of indirect, fragile, vague signals from someone who may or may not be watching you from behind a screen. You are not a character in her hidden story. You are the author of your own. And every second you spend decoding her silence is a second you are not writing your next chapter. Move forward, not because she gave you a reason to, but because you no longer need one. 8. Bring joy to yourself. It's easy to get lost in the fire, to become so absorbed in healing, in letting go, in proving your detachment, that you forget life was never meant to be just endured. Especially after heartbreak, many men enter a strange emotional purgatory. They convince themselves that stillness is strength, that stoicism is stoic suffering, that emotional numbness is a sign of maturity. They stop chasing her, but they also stop chasing joy. This is the final trap, and one you must break free from. The ultimate sign that you've moved on is not that you no longer think about her. It's that you've started smiling again. Not a forced smile for social appearances. Not a dopamine-charged grin from distractions or surface-level pleasures. A real smile. One born from within, from the pure, present joy of being alive. On your terms, in your rhythm, in your full, unapologetic center. Joy is not the enemy of discipline. Joy is the reward of alignment. Too many mistake Stoicism for emotional starvation. But Marcus Aurelius didn't walk through life without beauty. He noticed sunrises. He loved simplicity. He took pleasure in the small and the sublime. Even as emperor and philosopher, to bring joy to yourself is not weakness. It is mastery. Because only a man who has stabilized his foundation can afford to soften into delight without becoming consumed by it. Only a man who knows how to suffer well can appreciate the flavor of a peaceful morning. A beautiful view, a deep breath, a belly laugh. So how do you return to joy? Not through performance, not through validation. You begin by noticing. Start with what's right in front of you. The taste of coffee, the feel of wind, the rhythm of music, the friction of your calloused palms after a hard lift, the burn of your legs on the final sprint, the quiet after a good book. These are not filler moments. These are the marrow of life. Then move into expression. Create, write, build, craft, speak. Make something that exists outside of her memory. Channel your emotion into something lasting, something that reflects who you are becoming, not who you were when she left. Reclaim your presence. Go places you once avoided. Take up space you once shrank in. Laugh out loud, not because anyone's watching, but because you are no longer afraid of being fully here. You are not healing just to be neutral. You are healing, so you can feel everything without being ruled by anything. This is what most men misunderstand about joy. They think it makes them soft, but real joy, the kind forged in solitude, hardship, and fire, that joy makes you untouchable. Because it's not contingent. It's not based on what she says or does, who returns or doesn't, what the past meant or didn't. It's a quiet celebration of self-possession. And when she sees that, if she sees it, she'll feel it. Not as a performance, but as a frequency. You're not laughing to prove anything. You're simply radiant, and radiance is rare. Especially in those who have suffered. She may come back, she may not. But by then you won't be performing joy to get her back. You'll be too busy living it. And that's the turn. The most poetic kind of healing isn't silent attachment. It's the decision to let light in again, even when your heart still remembers what darkness felt like. You have the right to be whole, not just stoic, not just strong, joyful. And the more you embody that, the more your presence shifts from guarded to glowing, from wounded to wise, from desperate to divine. If you're on this path, if you've begun rediscovering what actually makes you smile, what genuinely fills you up, what moments bring back that childlike aliveness you forgot you had, I want to hear from you. Drop it below. A sentence, a scene, a habit. I bring joy to myself when and finish the thought. Let others see how simple, raw, and powerful that can be. Because joy, when shared, grows. 9. Balance feelings with focus. Let's make something clear. Feelings are not the enemy. Your pain is not a weakness. Your longing is not shameful. The emotional ache you feel when someone you cared for pulls away is proof that you are human, that you are capable of real connection. And for a Stoic, that emotional honesty is the starting point, not the destination. But while feelings deserve to be acknowledged, they must never be allowed to command your focus. That's where most men fall. They get stuck in the loop. One text triggers a whole day of overthinking. One memory becomes an emotional rabbit hole. One scroll through her profile derails an entire afternoon of productivity. Slowly, the internal world becomes reactive, not intentional. Reactive to what she does, what she says, what she doesn't say, what you imagine she might be thinking. This is not strength. This is not clarity. This is bondage dressed as emotion. A Stoic doesn't suppress his feelings. He integrates them without letting them pull him off course. Because here's the truth. What you focus on, you feed. And what you feed grows. Focus is your weapon. It is the chisel that sculpts your future. It is the beam that directs your energy toward the life you're trying to build. But if you aim that beam at your pain, your confusion, your obsession with closure, you grow those things. You keep them alive. You nurture the very feelings you claim you want to escape. Balance begins when you stop asking how you feel about her and start asking what you're building. Are you building a stronger body, a more disciplined schedule, a clearer path in your work, a deeper spiritual or intellectual foundation? Or are you building fantasies, imaginary conversations, emotional dramatics she can't even hear? Because whether you like it or not, you're always building something. The Stoic approach is not robotic. It's artistic. It's the art of living well in spite of feeling deeply. You allow yourself to feel grief, sadness, rejection, but you refuse to worship those feelings. You return, always, to what must be done. The workout, the writing, the planning, the silent walk, the deep breath, the sleep, the work, not to distract, but to re-anchor, to reclaim the ground that emotions momentarily shook. That's balance. Not choosing feelings or focus, but learning to let your feelings ride in the back seat, while your principles steer the wheel. Let's not pretend this is easy. Some days your mind will be at war with itself. Half of you wanting to move forward. Half of you replaying everything you lost. Half of you rebuilding. Half of you clinging. But that's where discipline saves you. Because when the feelings flare and the focus weakens, it is routine that protects you. Structure, repetition, ritual. These become the fortress, the rhythm you return to when nothing else feels stable. And over time, that rhythm becomes your rescue. Focus becomes your freedom. She may still live in a corner of your heart. That's fine. But she no longer gets to own the rhythm of your day. You own that now. So feel what you feel. Respect it. Journal it. Sit with it. But never, never let it steer the ship. Because the ocean of emotion is endless. But your time here is not. Conclusion. And here we are. If you've stayed with me this far, you already know this wasn't just about her. It never was. It was about you, about reclaiming the pieces of yourself that you gave away without realizing their value. About coming back to your own center, not for revenge, not to prove anything, but because you are worth returning to, because your silence, your mystery, your growth, your discipline, your joy were never meant to revolve around anyone else's gravity. She may want you back when you've moved on. But by then, the version of you she returns to will not be the same one who waited. He will be deeper, quieter, more focused, more joyful, more dangerous in the best way. And in that, there is power. Remember this. The Stoic man does not close his heart. He simply refuses to place it in the hands of someone who cannot carry it with care. Let her notice. Or don't let her matter anymore. Either way, you're good. Better than good. You're growing. And if you're on this path, if you felt the weight of these words and know you've still got work to do, subscribe to the Everlasting Stoic. We do this every week. We go deep, we speak truth. We sharpen iron. Tap that like button if this resonated. And drop a comment, even one word if you're walking this path too. Let the world know you're not just watching, you're rising. Until next time, stay calm, stay sharp, and never forget, the fire was not meant to consume you. It was meant to forge you.